Welcome back to Blacklit Memory. Tonight, I want to share with you 8 true stories, Halloween tales that still send chills down the spine whenever they're told. Out there, the fog drifts over rooftops like smoke from old secrets. And people still say that if you ever hear a soft knock on your back door after midnight, don't answer. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and tell me where you're listening from. Because maybe one of these stories began not far from where you are. Thank you for being here. Now then, let's begin. My name's Logan. I was 18 that year, 2 months out of juvenile for smashing up a liquor store while blackout drunk. I wasn't proud of it, but I'd stopped trying to explain myself. Mom, let me move back in, though it felt more like a rental agreement than family. We barely spoke. That Halloween. Nobody texted, not even to joke. I sat on the porch with a cigarette I didn't even want, watching kids race by in plastic costumes, candy buckets knocking against their knees. Their flashlights blinked like blue and red sirens, washing the sidewalks in color. Inside, the TV was off. My phone screen stayed black. That was when Kyle called. I hadn't talked to him since I got out. He was a year older. The kind of guy who got locked up for things like swiping bikes and pocketing snacks from gas stations. Nothing scary. Just repeat offenses stacked up high enough that somebody finally slammed the door. We met in the low-risk wing, shared a bunkhouse, worked the same cleanup crew, learned the rhythm of silence and boredom together. I don't know why he stuck to me. Maybe because I didn't talk much. Maybe because, once, when a guard found a phone charger in our locker, I said it was mine. He never brought it up, just started acting like we were bonded for life. I left the place early because Mom could afford to show up. Kyle didn't have that kind of luck. Now here he was, calling me on Halloween like no time had passed. Freedom's Eve, he said, like it was some kind of holiday. So, man, let's make a loop for old time's sake. 18. I almost said no. I told myself to, but I looked at my phone, saw the empty inbox again, and said, yeah, all right. It's like 10. We met at the Shell station just outside town. He pulled up in a beat-up pickup, already half laughing, as I climbed in. The truck smelled like fast food and stale smoke. He handed me a bottle without asking. We drank in the parking lot with the windows cracked, listening to the engine tick. Kyle hadn't changed. He still talked like the night owed him something. That's when the TV inside the gas station flicked on by itself. No cashier, no movement, just static turning to image. A low female voice said, "The Briar Glen development remains abandoned following the 1994 fire. Local accounts report faint lights visible every October 31st. Then the screen flickered again and went black. Kyle tapped the glass. "Did you hear that?" End quote. I nodded. He grinned sideways. "I know where that is." To Geth. I waited. "It's past the edge of town. Fancy houses. Never got finished. We used to call it the place rich people went to die." He chuckled. "Want to see if it's still glowing?" Well, BXC. I should have said no. I really should have. But I didn't. We drove out past the old mill, where the air got thick and the fog started to pool along the pavement like spilled milk. No GPS. No markers. Just cracked roads and overgrown signs. The trees leaned in. The headlights seemed to bounce off nothing. Then we saw it. Tucked at the back of a crumbling cul-de-sac was one house that looked untouched. Victorian, with a pointed roof like a folded hat. Porch swept clean. Every window aglow with warm light. Halloween decorations placed with care. Plastic ghosts. Faux spiderwebs. Tombstones propped in mulch beds. And jack-o'-lanterns. 6 of them lined the steps. The one in the middle had a grin carved deep and clean, and a candle that burned steady. No flicker. Just that firm orange glow, like it had never known wind. Kyle leaned forward, eyes lit. Somebody's home. Two with, I didn't. I said, "This doesn't feel right." Uh, doing too set. He laughed. "You scared of decorations now. And according there, don't die, go and die." The front gate creaked as he pushed it open. The side door wasn't locked. It swung when he nudged it with his shoulder. I followed him inside. Music drifted through the house. Old jazz on a record player. The dining room was lit. Table set for 6. Steam curled from a silver dish at the center. Everything looked fresh, warm, like someone had just stepped out to grab something from the car. I stood near the table while Kyle wandered deeper in. The wine glasses were still full. One of them trembled, just barely, like the house was breathing. I told myself it was a smart home. Timed lights, pre-programmed music. Maybe an assistant had just stepped out. But the air smelled off, like sweetness gone sour. My fingers twitched. I wanted to leave. Then Kyle's voice echoed from down the hall. "Logan, get in here. You gotta see this." Well, at 10, I moved toward the sound. The hallway was lined with framed photos, except the faces were missing. Not scratched, not blurred, just gone. Empty suits, blank dresses, rooms without people. Kyle was standing in front of a tall mirror. He looked at me and said, "Check this out. That's, Then he touched the glass and vanished. I stepped forward. The mirror showed no reflection. Not of me, not of the room. Only the soft orange glow behind me. I turned. The dining room was rotting. Chairs split and fallen. Dust thick on every surface. Wine turned black. The air stank of vinegar and mold. The food had collapsed into pulp. The door was gone, and the house was watching. I ran down the hallway, yelling Kyle's name like it could pull him out of the walls. My voice echoed back too fast, like the house had gotten smaller. I turned corners that hadn't been there before. Every door I opened showed me something wrong. One room was a nursery, but all the toys were melted. Another looked like a church, with pews facing a blank wall. I reached the stairs and found them different, curving down into darkness like a tunnel, not a basement. Cold air flowed up from below, carrying a sour, earthy smell that clung to my throat. I told myself not to go down, that Kyle wouldn't have gone that way. But the house didn't care what I told myself. It felt like the walls were listening, like if I stood still too long, they'd breathe in. I turned back toward the front, hoping to get out, but the living room was gone. In its place stood that same jack-o'-lantern from the porch. Only now it was blocking the doorway, sitting dead center, glowing white instead of orange. It didn't flicker. I stepped toward the front door and reached out. As soon as my fingers brushed the knob, a jolt shot through my arm. Not enough to knock me back, just enough to make me understand. The house had locked itself. Above me, Kyle's voice floated down. "I'm good. Man, come up here. You gotta see this." 80 now. I looked up the stairs. They didn't seem curved anymore. The house wanted me to go up now. So I did. Every step creaked like it was swallowing the sound. At the top, a door stood open. Soft light spilled out like a memory. I stepped inside. The room looked like our old bunkhouse from juvie. 2 metal frame beds, thin blankets, 1 radio on a crate. I stood in the doorway too long, trying to decide if this was a trick or a message. Then I saw the picture. It was taped to the wall, just above the bed. A photo of me and Kyle, standing in front of the mess hall last year. But Kyle's face was scratched out, smeared into a gray blur. I laughed a little under my breath. "Nice try," I said. "Real funny." Doc of the side the light added. The light cut out. The room went still. In the darkness, the mirror on the far wall glowed faintly. Not from light, but from movement. My reflection stood there. But something was wrong. It smiled too quickly. Its eyes didn't blink. I stepped closer. The glass rippled. The walls behind me start to pulse. soft at first, like lungs filling with air. Then harder. The floor beneath me swelled, then sank, as if the room itself was taking a breath. I reached for the door. It wasn't there. I spun around. The lantern had returned, sitting in the middle of the room. Its glow changed color slowly, orange to white, white to red. The room began to twist. I could feel it, like standing on a ship that was tilting 1 inch at a time. I grabbed a broken piece of bed frame and slammed it toward the wall. It passed through like water, slow and thick. The air had weight now. I gasped. Outside, wind roared. Windows stayed shut. I heard whispering right behind my ear, the kind that doesn't carry a voice, just breath and teeth. Then someone whispered, "Trick or treat." Dangsen. Thanes. I turned. No one. The wallpaper peeled near my shoulder. I reached out and touched the wall. It pulsed under my fingers. A heartbeat. I backed away. The room bent inward, like paper folding into itself. The corners came closer. The air pressed harder. I saw the window. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I hit the glass with my shoulder and it shattered around me. Cold mist hit my face as I fell through. The world spun, then slammed into my back. I lay on the lawn, coughing. Behind me, the house was shrinking, not falling apart, not crumbling, shrinking. The porch curled into itself. The windows folded like cardboard. The roof caved without a sound. In its place stood a squat, moldy brick house with a broken mailbox and no lights. No music. No pumpkin. Except one. Near the old stone step sat the same jack-o'-lantern, still glowing, still smiling. It didn't flicker. I didn't tell the cops everything, just enough to get them to check the place. They said the house had been condemned for decades, burned out, no electricity, no records of recent visitors. I asked about Kyle. They didn't find anyone. A year later, I walked past that lot, just once, just to see if it was really gone. It was, mostly, in the weeds, half buried in ash and brick. One pumpkin still burned, orange light, steady as ever. I didn't look directly at it. I didn't need to. Some things wear a mask so long they forget how to come off. And some houses never stop waiting for their next costume. There's this street in Maple Hollow where the fog always sinks faster than the rest of the town. It curls low and thick, swallowing the curbs, softening every porch light into a weak orange blur. The road curves toward the forest and ends in a small cul-de-sac, where only one house keeps its decorations up past 9. I hadn't been there before Halloween last year, but I can still see the porch if I close my eyes. My name's Elliot Green. I was 18, still stuck living with my parents, who barely spoke unless they were talking about money or test scores. I just failed the university entrance exam for the second time, and everything at home felt tight and cold. Every sound too loud, every silence worse. That week, I kept replaying a dumb thought in my head. What if I could go back just once? Just one Halloween where I didn't have to think about futures or failures. Just candy and running and pretending to be something I wasn't. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I dug my old costume out from a box in the attic. It was snug now. The fabric stretched tight around the shoulders, but it still fit. I added a scarf and a hoodie to help cover my face. I figured in the dark, nobody would notice I was taller than the others. Then I caught the bus to the next town over. Maple Hollow was smaller, older, the kind of place where front yards still had those paper ghost cutouts and carved pumpkins on every step. I spotted a group of kids about 9 or 10, their bags half full, giggling as they knocked on doors. I followed them for a bit, keeping a little distance. When one of the moms asked who I was, I said I was their cousin, just helping out for the night. That lie worked better than I thought. For a while, it felt real. We laughed when someone handed out toothbrushes. One of the boys gave me a lollipop and called me sir by accident. I didn't even mind. For an hour. I wasn't Elliot Green who'd failed twice and didn't know what came next. I was just another kid in a mask. By 8:30, most of the parents had come to collect them. The group thinned out, their voices fading into cars and distant doors. I waved goodbye and wandered further down the street, half hoping someone else would still be out. That was when I saw the house. It sat at the end of a short offshoot road, a dead-end street, narrow and cracked, lined with hedges gone wild. The house itself looked right, like it had been pulled out of a storybook. Porch railings lined with flickering lights, dozens of pumpkins, glowing from within, orange paper streamers fluttering gently from the mailbox. There was a hand-painted sign hanging from the porch light. No adults allowed. Extra treats for children. I stood at the gate for a long minute, my fingers curled around the fabric of my sleeve. I told myself it was dumb, childish even. But that was the point, wasn't it? One last try at being someone else. I stepped inside. The porch creaked under my sneakers. The door opened before I knocked. A woman stood in the frame, short and bent, wrapped in layers of shawls. Her face was hidden behind a wooden mask carved with swirling lines. The mouth set in a faint, unreadable smile. She spoke softly. "You're just in time, little one." Degastand was no bid. I almost corrected her, told her I wasn't little. But the words stuck, so I just nodded. She stepped aside and motioned toward the hallway. "There are 3 costumes waiting," she said. "Choose the one that feels like it remembers you." Debihiden. The house smelled like cinnamon and dry leaves. The walls were covered in faded wallpaper. I followed her into a sitting room where 3 mannequins stood side by side. One wore a scarecrow outfit, one a stitched-together bear suit, and the third was something else. A prince costume. It looked handmade. Deep green velvet, gold trim, a faded emblem stitched into the chest. A sash ran across one shoulder, and the boots were worn smooth at the toes. The tag pinned to it read, "The Forgotten Prince." I stepped closer. My fingers brushed the sleeve. It felt warm, like it had just been taken off. The old woman clapped gently. "Oh yes, that one fits best." "Do they? Better building with things the tension." I took it and changed in a side room. It slid on without effort. The fabric hugged my arms, my chest, even my waist like it had been sewn for me. I looked in the mirror by the door and froze. My body looked right, but my face, it didn't match the expression I was making. I smiled. The mirror didn't. My heart kicked once, sharp and cold. I laughed nervously, stepped out into the hallway. The woman was waiting. "I thought there'd be candy," I said, trying to sound light. She tilted her head. "Oh, sweetheart, you get something much better." "Day to it, ace." She leaned forward. "You get to stay." Ralabe. For a second I thought she was joking. I even tried to laugh, but the sound came out strange. Small, like a cough swallowed halfway. The woman didn't move. She just stood there. Wooden mask tilted slightly, as if she were listening to the silence instead of me. I reached for the door handle. It didn't turn. I tried again. Harder. The metal stayed cold in my palm. The faint hum of the house felt heavier now, like someone had turned the air thick. I turned back to the woman. "I think I should go," I said. She nodded once, then slowly raised her hand and pointed at the mirror. I looked. My reflection had changed. The costume still fit, still perfect, but the body in the mirror was smaller, the shoulders narrower, the face softer. A child's face, round and uncertain. The eyes didn't blink when I did. My breath hitched. "I'm not a kid," I whispered. "I'm 18. Back to..." But the reflection smiled at that. Its mouth curved too slowly. And when it spoke, the voice that came back wasn't mine. It was high and lisping, like a child pretending to be brave. Told you so. It's Dacian. I stumbled back, slamming into the wall. The woman was gone. Only the mask she had worn remained, hanging from a hook near the mirror. The sound of something small running came from the next room. I shouted, "Who's there?" But the footsteps only laughed and faded. Then another door creaked open. Light poured from it, soft yellow, like from a hallway lamp. I heard a child's voice call, "This way. Hurry." It was the same tone I'd just heard from the mirror. I hesitated, but the cold behind me pushed me forward. I stepped through. The hallway led to a room lined with old costumes. Hundreds of them, hanging limp on racks and hooks. Pirate coats, animal suits, superhero masks, all faded and torn. The air smelled like dust and plastic and something sweetly rotten. In the middle of the room stood a shelf of small Polaroid photographs, each taped under a mask. I walked closer. Each picture showed a child in costume, smiling stiffly. Some of the images had turned yellow with age. I scanned the names written under them in messy ink: Anna, Cole, Jeremy. Then my breath caught. One photo showed me, or at least, a boy who looked almost like me. His hair was shorter, his grin wider, eyes bright. Underneath, written in shaky letters, was Simon, age 9. My hands trembled. I tore the photo off the shelf. The wall behind it was warm. The air thickened again, pressing against my skin. The costumes on the racks began to sway, slowly, as if someone had walked past them and brushed their sleeves. "No," I whispered. "This isn't real." Tuosations, with grating tue. I reached up and pulled at the mask on my face. It didn't move. The fabric tugged against my skin, harder than it should have. I clawed at the seams, at the edge near my cheek, but the thing didn't lift. The pressure only deepened, a sharp pulling that burned. My reflection in the nearby mirror began to change again. Now it looked younger. The costume hung looser. My eyes were rounder, darker. The mouth curved into that same frozen, practiced smile. I could feel the heat rising under my skin, like wax melting. "Take it off," I screamed. But the voice that came out was small and broken. "I want to go home," it said. The mirror child didn't answer. It only tilted its head. Its lips parted. "Home is here. Daida now, it's Goding." The lights flickered. The walls shimmered, colors fading into soft pink and blue, the way a child's bedroom might look. The racks of costumes rustled gently, like fabric breathing. I stumbled backward, tripping over an old cape, and fell to my knees. The floor pulsed once beneath me, like a heartbeat. The woman's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "Do not be afraid. Children forget the pain of growing up. You will too." As Efri, I pressed my hands to my face. The edges were smooth now, no line between skin and fabric. I tried to scream again, but all that came out was a small giggle. Light, sweet, and wrong. In the mirror, the child stared back. Its eyes were empty glass. I turned toward the door, but it was gone. The room had sealed itself. The air grew still again, filled only with the faint hum of something unseen. Now I am standing very still. The costumes around me sway like they are breathing. The laughter of children hums faintly behind the walls. The mirror child is closer now, its hand pressing against the glass, palm flat and waiting. I press mine to it. The surface ripples, and then I am inside. When I woke again, there was only quiet. The room looked smaller, the air colder. A row of empty hooks lined the wall beside me. I could no longer feel the costume. It was simply skin. Somewhere behind me, I heard the woman's voice one last time. "Good boy. Children forget. You know, they always forget they were ever grown." The sound faded into the walls. Now the mirror shows only a boy, small and patient, smiling forever in his perfect costume. That was the last thing I remember from that night. I woke up just before sunrise, curled up at the edge of the woods behind Maple Hollow. My costume was gone. My hands were scraped. My breath felt like it belonged to someone younger. The house wasn't there anymore. Just trees, old fences, and a fog that wouldn't lift. I never told anyone what happened. Not really. I said I got lost trick-or-treating, that I blacked out from low blood sugar or something dumb enough to pass. My parents were too relieved to ask questions. 2 months later, I moved to the city to live with my cousin. Got a job, started over, tried to put it behind me. But every Halloween since, right around dusk, I see things. Not ghosts, not shadows, just kids. Not in the street, not with parents. In windows, on porches, watching. One of them always wears green velvet with gold trim. He stands too still, smiles too long, and his reflection never quite matches what's on his face. Before we step into the next story, if you're still here, still listening, with the lights low, maybe drop a comment. Just tell me where you're listening from. It helps more than you know. All right, let's keep going. I was the one who came up with the idea. Nolan laughed like it was the funniest thing he'd heard all week. Steal a couple pumpkins from the creepiest patch in town. Hell yeah. Jace just stared at me like he wanted to say no but didn't know how. We weren't planning to sell them or anything. Just carve something stupid and post it online. One last Halloween, before we all got too old to sneak around and laugh like kids. Besides, Mr. Dorset's warning made it too tempting. He had a sign up all October. Do not enter on the 31st. If the lanterns are lit, turn back. He told people it wasn't him who lit them. That's what made it perfect. No one our age ever backed off from a dare that smelled like superstition. So, at 9:30, we hopped the back fence of the Dorset farm with nothing but a flashlight, a flask, and my carving set. The fog was already knee-high, curling around our legs like it wanted to follow us in. The pumpkins sat in long, perfect rows, their skin damp with cold. Lanterns flickered along the main path. In the center of the field stood a scarecrow. It was tall, taller than any we'd seen in town. Hat made of straw, coat torn and stitched at the arms. Its face was carved wood, smooth and sanded, with a smile too clean to be a joke. The eyes were just deep, round holes. We circled it once, not too close. Nolan set his speaker down low in the grass and played some scratchy rock from his phone. He opened a flask and offered it to us. Jace shook his head. I took a sip. The burn helped. Let's carve by that one, I said, pointing at a big pumpkin near the scarecrow's base. It was almost perfect. Round, full, skin still wet from dew. Jace crouched down beside it. This close to the thing. 1870. I shrugged. It's just wood. Wait, didn't I say? He grumbled but got to work, digging in with a pocket knife. A few seconds later, he froze. What the hell? He muttered. We leaned in. Inside the pumpkin, tangled in the pulp, were strands of black hair. Thick, coarse, not like vine threads. Jace reached in again and pulled out something small. A fingernail. He dropped it, scrambled back. That's not funny, man. Over, and was these at? Nolan blinked. Wait, are you saying he gestured toward the scarecrow? The old guy planted a pumpkin with hair and nails in it. The starting one in the says, and questions. Caleb raised his phone to snap a picture. The screen blinked, then blurred. The image came out foggy, like the lens had fogged up from the inside. I rubbed it clean, looked up. The scarecrow had moved. Its head, which had been facing north, now faced us. My breath caught. Did it just? I swear to God, Jace whispered. It was turned the other way. I swear. Wayside. We backed up. Nolan walked forward instead, waving a hand in front of the figure. It's just your nerves. Static in the fog or whatever. Take a ladder. Then the lantern above the scarecrow started to drip. Not wax. Not water. Dark red. Slow and sticky. It ran down the pole, soaking the scarf knotted at the neck. I lifted my flashlight. The scarecrow's eyes glistened. Something seeped from the carved holes, streaking down the face like tears. Farther off, from somewhere deep in the rows, we heard a groan. Wooden, dry, like fence posts dragging. Jace spun around. No. Nope. I'm done. Too differently hesitated. You're overreacting, Nolan said. But his laugh sounded thinner now. He took his flask again and wandered toward the edge of the field. I got a piss. One by Will Diveray. He didn't come back. Jace and I waited a few minutes, calling his name in hushed voices. No answer. I stepped toward the trail he took. There was something on the ground near the base of the scarecrow. Nolan's hat. The brim was wet, dark with something thick and seeping. Jace let out a short, sharp breath. No. No, no, no. That's not right. Intellides. The scarecrow's face was different now. The smile was gone. The eyes deeper. Shadows clung to the edges of its face. The wood grain seemed to twist inward, like it was watching. Then it moved. Not a twitch. It dropped from its post like a marionette with cut strings, hit the earth, and stood upright. Its shoulders rolled once. The coat shifted. The hat tilted forward. And the lights, every single lantern in the field, flickered once and went out. All but one. My flashlight, which now shook in my hands. We ran. No plan. No words. Just the sound of Jace's breathing sharp in my ears and the thud of our feet against the soft ground. The fog pulled tighter around us, like it was trying to hold us back. We should have found the trail. We should have been out in seconds. But the field had changed. The rows were tighter. The dirt beneath us turned wet, sucking at our shoes, slowing every step like it wanted to keep us. Behind us came the sound of something moving without footsteps, not dragging. Not stomping, just there, gaining ground without touching it. We didn't turn around. I felt Jace stumble. I grabbed his arm, hauled him up. His face was pale, streaked with mud and sweat. Keep going, I hissed. Almost there. That is it, absolute G. But we weren't. The scarecrow was somewhere behind us, not running, not chasing, just appearing. Every time I looked over my shoulder, it was closer. Still, at low, face warped, as if it was being carved again and again by something we couldn't see. We saw the fence, just past the last row. Jace shouted, "That's it. There. Take Stiveries in fashions." His foot hit something slick. He went down hard, grabbing my jacket on the way. We hit the ground together, breath knocked out of us. For a second, the fog cleared just enough for me to see it. The scarecrow, standing just 10 feet back, shoulders still, head slightly tilted. I didn't feel brave. I didn't even feel human. I felt like part of the dirt. Then the wind shifted. Something heavy fell behind us. A thud so dense it shook the ground under my knees. I didn't look. I just dragged Jace toward the fence. He got one leg up. I pushed from below. We toppled over the wood and hit the dirt on the other side. I blinked. There was nothing. No pumpkins. No lanterns. No scarecrow. Just a wide patch of field. Empty. Silent. Jace clutched his chest, gasping. I crawled a few feet away and turned back toward where we came from. There was nothing but dry soil and short weeds. We lay there for a long time. Not speaking, not trusting what we'd seen. The wind had stopped. Only our breath made noise. They found Nolan the next morning, just past the fence, lying face down in the mud. His pulse was faint, and there was a bruise along his temple. The paramedic said he must have fallen and hit his head. No one asked why his clothes were soaked through with something that smelled like old earth. He said he blacked out, couldn't remember anything. Just that the field felt wrong, like the air had weight and sound and teeth. We tried to explain. The photos, the hair in the pumpkin, the changing face. The sheriff didn't laugh, but he didn't write it down either. Said kids make things up when they trespass where they shouldn't. Said we were lucky it wasn't worse. The field was inspected that afternoon. Nothing strange. No scarecrow. No blood. No carved pumpkins. Just open land with a rusted gate and a few leftover stalks. The same patch everyone thought Mr. Dorset had stopped using years ago. But that night, as I sat alone flipping through my phone, I found a photo I didn't remember taking. It showed the three of us. Me, Jace, Nolan, kneeling beside a pumpkin, carving. And behind us, just out of focus, stood the scarecrow. Its face was not the one we first saw. It was watching us. I deleted the photo, but the next morning, it was back, saved in a different folder. We always waited until November 1st. People were done with the season by then. Decorations got tossed, lights unplugged, fake blood dried in the grass, and no one cared what went missing. That was our sweet spot. It started as a side hustle. Me and Devin, back when we were broke and living off gas station sandwiches. Then Karina joined in when things got more fun than sketchy. We called ourselves the Late Collectors. 3 names, 1 van, and a habit of turning forgotten Halloween junk into real money online. That afternoon, we drove up through Briar Hollow, a mountain town where the fog seemed permanent and nobody used social media after sunset. Devin was at the wheel, Karina in the back seat filming B-roll for TikTok. I had a clipboard and a thermos full of bitter coffee. We hit the usual yards, foam gravestones, plastic skeletons, a half-decent witch costume on someone's porch railing. Then we found the house near the graveyard. It sat on the edge of a slope, windows boarded, paint peeling, the kind of place that leaned without moving. Out front was a patch of disturbed earth, covered in yellow grass. And in the center, driven straight into the dirt, was a tall wooden stake. On the stake hung a mask. It was carved from thick, dark wood, with long cheeks and a stretched mouth curled into a smile that didn't look happy. The eye holes were narrow, and the whole thing was upside down, crown pointing down, chin to the sky. No strings, no wire, just jammed down onto the post like it had been hammered into place. Karina was already walking toward it. "That's not paper mache," she said. "That's real wood. It is no place well." Devin hesitated by the van. "It's planted, not hung. That means something. It is a nine saffant." I smirked. "It means someone got lazy and stuck it down instead of hanging it. Come on, this thing would sell. Dale you 80. We pulled it up together. The stake came free with a dry crack, like roots breaking. I tossed the mask into the back of the van. It felt warm for something that had been outside all night. We kept going for another hour, filled 2 bins and half a garment bag. By the time we got back to the warehouse, it was almost dark. Karina set the mask on one of the shelves in our sorting room. "Creepy centerpiece," she joked. "Watch this be the one that sells first." Dafferty, R.F.S. I didn't think much of it until I walked by an hour later and saw her staring at it. "What's up?" I asked. She pointed at the mask. "I think it had a crack earlier, like right here down the middle." "You don't lease to Dever comment." I looked. There was no crack now. "Must have been dirt," I said. That night, I uploaded a batch of product photos. The mask refused to cooperate. Every time I took a shot, something blurred the image. Not badly, but enough to look wrong. In one of them, the shadows looked like fingers behind my shoulder. Devin noticed first. He stayed late sorting textiles. I heard him pause by the doorway and say, "You playing music?" "That says the next to dating," and said, Where did you aid? I wasn't. Neither was Karina. There's breathing in here, he said, then laughed a little too quick. Never mind. Probably nothing. It's seizing tales and everyone's. We all laughed. But we didn't talk about the mask for the rest of the night. Until morning, I came in early, hoping to shoot again. The mask was no longer on the shelf. It was sitting in the middle of the floor. Clean. Upright. As if someone had gently placed it there. I stared at it for a long time. The warehouse was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator in the corner. The air felt colder. Though the heat had kicked on hours ago, the mask leaned slightly, like it was still trying to sink into the floor. Karina came in next. You moved it. Yes. I shook my head. She bent down, touched the edge, and pulled her hand back fast. It's warm again, she said quietly. Devin arrived a few minutes later and didn't even take off his jacket. He took one look at the mask and muttered, "We should put it back." As Nata'd do, back where way? I asked. The graveyard. You really want to explain that to the sheriff? If you could action to. Karina laughed nervously. It's just wood. We'll toss it in the trash. Done. By said to shown. So we did. We carried it out behind the warehouse and dropped it in the dumpster with a loud clunk. Devin crossed his arms and waited like he expected something to happen. Nothing did. We went back inside. And for the first time all day, it felt normal. Karina turned on music. Devin cleaned up. I worked on my listing descriptions. The tension eased. The kind of false calm that lets you forget for a few minutes that something isn't right. It lasted about half an hour. When I walked back into the sorting room, the mask was there again, right in the center of the table. Clean. Polished. No dust. No dirt. Who's messing with me? I said, louder than I meant to. Devin froze. Karina's smile faded. She whispered, I swear to you, I didn't touch it. Down was I teen have dead. The room seemed smaller suddenly. The lights flickered once. The mask was angled toward us, like it was listening. Devin grabbed it and marched to the burn barrel outside. We're ending this now. Way was now. With added growls. I followed. Karina stayed at the door, arms wrapped around herself. He lit a match and tossed it in. The mask caught instantly. But the smell wasn't right. It didn't smell like burning wood. It smelled like skin. Sweet and heavy and wrong. Karina gagged. I turned away. Then came the sound. A single pop, like air bursting under the surface of boiling water. The mask darkened, turned almost black. But the carved mouth twisted wider, stretching into something that didn't belong to wood. Devin stepped back. Enough, he said. We're leaving it. They stayed and takes attentions. We went back inside. For a moment, I thought it was over. I checked the livestream camera we kept running overnight for followers. It was on, though no one had touched it. The feed was live. I saw myself on the screen, walking behind the counter, Karina by the door, Devin off frame. Then something else. A shape behind me. Tall, thin, wearing the mask. I spun around. Nothing. The camera still streamed. I reached to shut it off, but the screen flashed once, bright white, and every light in the warehouse went out. The dark came thick. Karina screamed. Devin's footsteps stumbled somewhere ahead. I turned on my phone flashlight. The beam hit something standing in the far corner. A figure. It didn't move, didn't breathe, but it was there, tall as the ceiling, head bowed slightly under the rafters. The mask gleamed faintly in the light. Then the power snapped back on. The corner was empty. The mask was gone. Devin grabbed Karina's arm. We're leaving. Now. Deng dax to I. We ran for the van. The air outside was freezing. I could still smell the burnt sweetness clinging to my clothes. We drove straight to the house near the graveyard, headlights cutting through the fog. When we stopped, The wind pressed hard against the windshield like it wanted in. The yard looked the same as before. The stake was back in the ground, and the mask hung on it again, upside down, unburned. Smiling faintly through the mist, Karina whispered, "It's over, right? We are Havaconsis." Devon stared into the mirror. His face went pale, because in the reflection, he was still standing there in the yard, wearing the mask. I was never supposed to go out on Halloween, not with where we lived. My dad said it wasn't right for a kid growing up beside a cemetery to go chasing candy like other children. He believed in old ideas. Stuff about bad luck and thin veils and how the dead don't like to be ignored on nights like that. But I was 11, and being left out year after year started to hurt worse than the cold. I used to press my nose to the glass and watch the neighbor kids in their plastic masks and fairy wings run down the road, their voices high and happy. I'd stand behind the curtains and imagine what it felt like to be normal. This year, I decided I would go. Dad was out late digging a fresh plot and would be too tired to check on me when he got in. I waited until the house went still, pulled the old army jacket from the hook by the door, and crept outside. My costume was one Dad had stitched together from strips of reflective tape and faded black fabric, meant to look like a skeleton. He made it for me a few years ago, when he still tried. The air was sharp and quiet. Our little house sat along the west fence of the cemetery, where the grass grew longer and the headstones leaned like tired shoulders. I followed the edge of the fence, careful not to let the gravel crunch under my shoes. The town's lights glimmered faintly beyond the trees, and I imagined the sound of laughter somewhere far ahead. But then I saw it, just past the tallest oak, at a section of the fence that had rusted to a dark orange. Someone was standing on the other side. A child, small like me, wearing a skeleton costume. At first I thought maybe it was my reflection, but the angle was off. The other kid stood inside the cemetery, tucked just between the shadows of two old stones. He was holding a bag, exactly like mine. I stopped. The cold felt thicker around my ankles, the way fog sometimes hugs low to the ground in the mornings. The kid smiled, just barely, then turned and walked deeper into the darkness, leaving the fence behind. I stayed frozen for a long moment. Maybe it was a trick. Maybe some local kids were playing games again. It wouldn't be the first time someone messed with the gravedigger's son. Still, something crawled under my skin as I walked on. I didn't run, but I kept checking over my shoulder like a thread had been tied to my back. Once I made it out past the cemetery's reach, things felt brighter. Houses with porch lights glowing, pumpkins lit from within. I knocked on a few doors and said trick or treat like I'd practiced in my head. Got a handful of candy, a few smiles, but my mind kept dragging me back to that rusted part of the fence. By the time I turned back, the moon was higher and the cold had crept under my jacket. I walked faster, eager to be home. I kept my eyes low, just in case. But when I passed the far row of cedars, I saw him again, closer this time, standing by a row of old stones that marked the edge of the newer graves. He didn't move. He just looked at me. I lifted my hand and waved, thinking maybe I'd finally catch the kid in the act. He waved back, but his hand moved too slow, offbeat. I squinted through the dark. That costume, it didn't have the tear in the sleeve like mine, the rip I'd made climbing the fence last spring. Whoever this was, it wasn't me. It wasn't a reflection. It wasn't a trick. I ran the last stretch home, cutting through the side yard. My boots hit the porch hard enough to wake someone, but no lights came on. I didn't look back. I didn't want to hear that metal scraping again. But I did, just once, like fingers dragging across iron. I woke sometime past midnight. My room was quiet, but not the kind of quiet that lets you sleep. There was a noise outside, faint but steady, like someone tapping on glass. I sat up. The window beside my bed faced the cemetery. Through the thin curtain, I could see the faint shimmer of frost, the silhouette of the fence, and something else, a shape, Small, still. I got up slow, careful not to make the floor creak. My bare feet hit the cold wood as I crept toward the door. I didn't wake my dad. He hadn't stirred since coming home, just a lump under his old blanket on the couch. He always slept light. That night, he didn't. Outside, the wind had dropped. Everything felt pressed down, like the world was waiting. I stepped onto the porch, looked across the yard. The kid was back. He stood right at the edge of the fence, a few feet from where the old tool shed leaned against the trees. His back was turned to me, but his hand was raised, waving slow, back and forth. I didn't say anything. I didn't move. Then he spoke. "Come back over. I think there's still some candy. In the good spots." That's crazy. It was my voice, or close enough to make my legs lock in place. He does not turn, not right away. I take one step closer, and the cold slips into my chest like smoke. The other me begins to turn his head. Slow, unnatural. His face is wrong, empty of color. The eyes are wide and pale. The mouth, small and calm like he's not scared at all. I step back. My heel hits the porch. I try to run, but something moves faster. A hand. It reaches through the fence, pale and thin, fingers like wire. It grabs the front of my jacket. There is no strength in the grip, but I can't move. My legs feel heavy. My arms tingle, like falling asleep in the worst way. I open my mouth to scream, and nothing comes out. My breath clouds and floats sideways. I feel the pull, like something tugging from behind my ribs. Then I drop, hard. The hand slips. I hit the ground and scramble back. The other kid is fading into the dark, back toward the stones. I keep crawling until I reach the porch steps, then run inside and slam the door behind me. I lock it, bolt it, sit with my back against the wood until my chest stops shaking. I don't sleep, not even with the blanket pulled over my head. I just wait. By morning, everything looks normal. Sunlight cuts through the clouds. My dad asks if I want oatmeal. I don't answer. I just nod. Later, when he's gone out to rake leaves, I stuff the costume into a garbage bag, tie it tight, take it all the way to the edge of the back lot and burn it in the old rusted barrel. I watch until only the ash remains. Even then, I feel like something is still watching me. The next few days, I avoid the fence, but whenever I do pass it, even from far away, I feel that same tingle under my skin, like a thread being pulled. I never went out on Halloween again. 10 years later, when I took my girlfriend back to see the house, we stood near the porch and looked out across the old cemetery. She asked if I wanted to walk the fence line. I told her, I don't go near that fence. Not ever. They savin' back this. That one hit a little different. If these stories mean something to you, leave a like, subscribe, or share this video with someone who'd stay up to hear it too. And if you've got a true horror story of your own, my email's in the description. Now, story 6. The street was chaos in the way only Halloween could make it. Neon wings, glowing sticks, laughter ricocheting off windows and pavement. We moved through it like shadows. Just 2 more figures in black. Masks, blank and smooth. No one looked at us twice. I kept my head down and my voice low. Riley was right on my heels. "You're sure nobody followed us?" he asked, almost too quiet to hear over the sound of kids screaming for candy. I didn't look at him when I answered. "Trust me, we just need to reach the bus stop at the edge of town. After that, we're out." And he nodded, even though I knew he was still scared. I didn't blame him. I was scared too, but I couldn't show it. We slipped behind the last row of vendor tents and into a side alley that led past the old shopping plaza. I remembered this shortcut from when I was a kid. Used to take it with friends to sneak into movie showings or to ditch the crowd during fireworks. It was narrow, the kind of place where the air always felt cooler. But tonight, The air felt wrong. Someone was already standing at the end of the alley. He wore the exact same costume as us. Black hoodie, black jeans, that same paper mask. Plain, featureless. I stopped without thinking. Riley nearly bumped into me. "Maybe it's just someone else dressed like us," he whispered. The figure didn't move at first. Then it tilted its head, took one step forward, then stopped. I grabbed Riley's arm. "Back. Now." And, we turned and walked fast, retracing our steps toward the parking lot behind the plaza. I looked back once. The figure was gone. Riley said nothing as we cut through the broken fencing and across the gravel lot, but I could feel the questions piling up behind his eyes. My leg ached. I was slowing us down. He didn't complain, just stayed close and helped me over the curb. As we reached the slope that led up toward the road, I heard it. Footsteps. Quick. Close. We didn't stop. We didn't speak. We just kept going. My breath burned in my chest, and my leg throbbed worse with every step. But we couldn't slow down. We crossed a quiet side street where the porch lights were fewer. The laughter and music behind us dimmed. I thought maybe we had made it, but then Riley turned to look behind. He stopped cold. I turned too. Someone stood in the middle of the street, not running, not calling out, just watching. Shorter than me, standing perfectly still under a flickering lamppost. And in his hand, something long and silver caught the light. I couldn't tell if it was a toy or something else. Couldn't tell if this was some sick Halloween prank or something worse. But the way he held it, like he knew how to use it. We moved again, not running yet, but faster now. Down the last strip of sidewalk and across a stretch of grass and weeds where no houses stood. The houses had thinned out. We were reaching the edge of town, the place where things get quiet, where people don't hear you yell. We found the house by accident, just a crumbling place off the service road, roof sagging, windows already gone. I pushed the door open with my shoulder and pulled Riley in behind me. My heart was pounding too loud to hear anything else. We ducked behind what used to be a kitchen island, now just broken tile and scattered tools. A fridge lay on its side near the hallway, rusted and humming like it had ghosts, still trying to keep cold. We crouched behind it, waited. Neither of us spoke. Riley had the paper knife in his hand, gripped tight enough to turn his knuckles white. I saw him glance toward the broken window above us. I followed his eyes. Footsteps. Slow. Dragging slightly. Then a soft scrape, like wet shoes across warped wood. Riley whispered, "You're sure nobody knew we'd come this way?" To wait. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to lie to my own brother, to make him feel safer. But all I managed was a slow shake of the head. The footsteps stopped. Then we heard the voice. Right outside the shattered window. "Same masks," it whispered. "Might as well keep one. Day way." I didn't wait. I grabbed Riley by the arm and we bolted through the back door, our feet slipping on the damp floor. He caught me when I nearly went down. I caught him when he tripped on the step. We didn't stop. Not even when the wind picked up behind us. Not when we heard something moving just out of sight. We reached the edge of the lot where the old train line ran. The rails were rusted, the ties half swallowed by grass. Jacob finally dropped to a crouch, breathing hard, his leg clearly worse now. I pulled out the water bottle and handed it to him, keeping my eyes on the empty space behind us. The light from town barely reached this far, just a dim orange blur through the trees. Everything else was black and cold and too quiet. I should have noticed the silence was too perfect. Should have realized something was wrong. But by the time I turned around, it was already too late. From the shadows behind Jacob, something moved. A figure stepped forward, quick and low. It grabbed my arm, cold fingers, dry and fast. I yelled, dropped the bottle, tried to swing with the paper knife but missed. The figure was wearing our mask, exactly the same. But when it lunged and the mask slipped off, there was nothing underneath. No face, No eyes. Just a smooth hollow where a person should be. I screamed. Jacob reacted fast. He swung the flashlight and cracked it across the thing's shoulder. The beam sputtered, but the thing reeled back. We ran again. Toward the next hill. Toward anything. When we looked back, it was standing at the edge of the tracks. Mask off. Head tilted. Watching. The blank mask lay on the ground at its feet, facing our way, still as stone. We didn't stop running until the lights of a truck came into view. I didn't ask whose it was. I just pulled Jacob in, slammed the door, and told the driver to go. He looked confused, but something in my face must have convinced him. As we pulled away, I kept my eyes out the back window. The figure was gone, but I swear, for 1 second, I saw the mask sitting upright on the rail, waiting. Halloween night always brought out the best trash. We rolled the cart down Madison like we owned it, wheels squeaking and one bag already leaking pumpkin guts. Manny had a cigarette hanging from his lips and kept muttering about how people threw out more food than they ate. I told him to keep his eyes open and his mouth shut. Rex was already a few steps ahead, scanning the side yard of the preschool like a hawk circling a field. "This ain't a holiday," Manny said. "It's a damn treasure hunt." It's not matey. The place still had decorations up, paper ghosts drooping from the fence. One of those inflatable spiders, half deflated and sagging like it had lost the will to live. There was a warm stink in the air, old frosting, rotting squash, cheap candy mashed into the dirt. Then Rex stopped cold. Right by the dumpster, tucked behind a cracked plastic chair, was a wooden box. Square, dark-stained. The lid half slid open like someone had started to look inside and thought better of it. Rex crouched and ran his hand over the side. "Smells like smoke," he muttered. There was a smear of ash along the lid, like fingers had dragged across it. Not adult fingers either. Small, thin, like a kid. Lou, quiet as always, crouched beside Rex. He put one palm flat against the wood and stayed there a second longer than normal. Then he looked up and said, real soft, "It's warm." Well said, and faced after. None of us spoke for a beat. Even Manny stopped chewing his gum. Then we all kind of chuckled at the same time. Shrugged it off. Rex tossed it into the cart. "We'll check it back at my spot," he said. "Could be something old. Antique. People like old creepy stuff around this time." Dive. We left the preschool with a bag full of half-burned candles, plastic skeletons, and that strange little box. A few blocks down, something clanged behind us. Sharp. Hollow. Like wood striking metal. Manny glanced back. "Probably a cat," he said, but his voice dipped halfway through. "Or a possum. Damn things dig like it's the lottery." I dated, was all about. We all split at the corner. That was the usual routine. Rex lived in the shell of a maintenance shed behind the train depot. Lou slept near the main road in a lean-to under an old billboard. I had my spot near the edge of the river lot. It wasn't much, but it kept the wind off. Lou took the box. Said he wanted to give it a wipe. Maybe pop it open in the morning. Rex let him. Said we'd regroup over coffee. See if there was anything worth hawking. On my way back, I kept thinking I heard steps behind me. Not heavy ones. Just a faint rhythm, like someone pacing at a distance. Every time I turned, there was nothing. Just me, the dark, and the stink of sugar gone bad. By morning, the air had that brittle bite to it. Sun out, but no warmth. I made my way to Rex's place like we'd planned, hoping Lou had figured out if the box was worth anything. Rex was sitting on a milk crate outside the shed, arms crossed, jaw tight. He didn't look up right away. "Manny," he said finally. "You seen Lou?" 18. Castor. "No. Thought he was with you." Techin' out of one. We walked together up the hill toward Lou's lean-to. It was quiet. Too quiet for that hour. No birds. No cars. just wind nudging a loose scrap of tarp. The kind of quiet that makes your chest feel hollow before you even know why. The tarp was half open. The fire pit had burned down to black husks. Lou's bedroll was still there, but he wasn't. And the box. It was back, sitting right where Lou usually placed his cooking pot. The wood had been wiped clean, the lid shut tight. No more dust. No more ash. Rex stepped closer. I watched his shoulders tense. "This wasn't here last night," he muttered. "He took it with him. I saw, and 21. I looked down. That was when I noticed it. A perfect handprint, pressed into the corner of Lou's bedroll. Black, dry, not smudged. A child's hand. Rex didn't say anything else. He opened the lid. Inside, there was no treasure. Just a length of old chain. And a tooth. Not from a dog. Not from any animal. A human molar. Still dark at the root. I wanted to throw the whole thing into the fire pit, but Rex shut the lid. "Quick," he said. "We take turns watching, just in case." His cries. That night, we set up in shifts. Rex went first. I took over near midnight. Nothing happened for hours. Just the wind tapping through the cracks in the boards. Then, just before dawn, I stepped outside the shed to pee behind the wall. I heard movement. Not behind me. Out by the tree line. I froze. A figure stood there. Lou. He was turned away. Still, head lowered like he was studying something on the ground. I called out, "Lou, what are you doing, man?" They rest us." He didn't answer. I took a step closer. He took a step forward, deeper into the brush. "Wait," I shouted. "Where have you been?" End quote. Tentrest. He didn't stop. Just kept walking. Slow. Heavy. I ran after him. Around the trees. Past the old drainage pipe. My breath white in the air. Then I saw it. The box. Placed right in the middle of the trail. Lid open. Empty. No Lou. No sound. When I walked back to the shed, Rex was already packing his things. Not rushing. Just slow. Steady motions. Like a man who'd made a decision. He pointed at the box sitting in the cart. Still empty. Still clean. "I don't think it wants to stay," he said. "But if it's going somewhere, I'll push." Axes. He tied it up in an old cloth, tucked it deep under the bags, and started rolling the cart down the road. Didn't ask me to follow. I didn't ask him to stop. I told myself it would be the last one. One final pickup. One more handoff and then I would walk away. Burn the sim. Delete the backups. And disappear into something that looked like normal. That was the plan. The meet was behind an abandoned hardware store out by the western edge of town. Halloween night gave it perfect cover. Masks everywhere. Cops busy with noise complaints and lost kids. I parked by the loading dock and waited. 2 men approached on foot. One carried the bag. Neither spoke more than 10 words. No names. No, look inside. The thing they gave me was heavy, wrapped tight in a burlap sack with a leather tie. I asked if it was hot. The taller one just said, "Don't let it sit too long." Then they walked off. At first, I thought it might be old tools, maybe bronze, something stupidly ornate that they didn't know how to move. But the second I got home, I set the bag on the bench in my garage and the smell hit me. Wet wood, dust, chemical rot, something sour underneath, like mold clinging to a cellar wall. I loosened the tie and peeled the sack open. Inside was a mask. It looked human, not in the theatrical way, not glossy plastic or Halloween cheap. The texture was wrong, grainy, the surface pale and uneven, the nose too flat, the lips barely parted. No strap, just a shell of a face. I touched it once. The back was soft, almost like hide. lined with uneven stitches that ran edge to edge in a rough oval. I pulled my hand back fast, left it there on the workbench and walked into the kitchen. I made coffee, tried to act normal. When I came back, the garage light was flickering. The door I had locked was open an inch. And the mask, it was facing the door. Not where I left it. I stood still, counted to 5, then reached forward, gently turned it back toward the wall, and closed the door again. Did not say a word. Later that night, I took a photo of it with my old burner and tried to post it to one of the darker auction threads. 10 minutes later, the listing vanished. Not flagged. Not rejected. Gone. Then came the message. No profile photo. No username. Just one line. That item is not permitted to remain. End quote. I powered down the phone and took the battery out. My pulse was steady, but the air felt wrong. Every corner of the room seemed to hum just slightly off key. That night, I locked the garage twice. Still, around 2 a.m., I heard it. A soft scratching sound behind the house. Rhythmic. Slow. Like someone running their nails across the siding. The next night, I checked the garage first. Everything looked the same. The bag was sealed, sitting exactly where I left it. I didn't open it again. I just watched it for a while. Then I reviewed the camera footage from the night before. My backlot camera showed nothing unusual, just wind and dark. But the file was a few seconds shorter than it should have been. A clean skip. No static. Just gone. I started keeping the mask closer to the door. Still in the sack. Like that would make it easier to toss if things got weird. I didn't sleep much. Coffee helped. Cold air helped more. The next time I opened the bag, I did it with gloves on. A heavy-duty flashlight in one hand. I shone it deep into the mask. And something shifted inside me. The inner lining was rough and uneven. Not leather. Not plastic. The texture reminded me of old. Dry skin. Thick. Pliable. And stitched with thread that didn't belong in any costume shop. At the center of the mask, near where the eyes would have been, was a patch of torn material, almost like something had been sewn shut and then pulled apart. That was enough. I walked it out to the back field, past the rusted barrel, past the broken fence. There was a drainage ditch that caught runoff when it rained, lined with rock and buried trash. I dropped the bag down into the ditch, watched it fall, turned away. But behind me, something hit the gravel. I looked back. The sack had opened. The mask was lying face up. And just beyond the fence, standing motionless under the old power line, was a figure. They wore a long coat. Their face was hidden in shadow, but I could see their hand. They were holding a mask exactly like mine. I froze. My legs wouldn't move. The mask at my feet seemed to be pulling me toward it. Then everything snapped. I ran. I stumbled through the gate, slammed the garage door behind me, and locked every bolt. The house lights flickered once. Then all of them went out, in the dark. I heard it. A slow, soft sound, like a needle stitching across a wooden table. I raised my flashlight. The mask was inside. It lay on the table, perfectly still, facing me. But the eye holes were sealed. No openings. Just smooth skin. The light blinked off. When it came back, the mask had moved. It was on the chair now, right beside the door. I checked the locks again. I could not remember opening that door, and I didn't hear it close. I stood there in silence, holding the flashlight, breathing slow through my teeth. I did not touch the mask again. Not that night. Not ever. A week later, I sold off everything. Tools, burner phones, routers, even the backup laptop. Packed what I could into a duffel and left town before sunrise. Never told anyone why. But now, every time I step into a room, I flip the light switch twice. Once to turn it on, once to make sure it stays. And last month, in a thrift store, 2 towns over, I saw something hanging on the far wall. A mask. Pale. Featureless. No price tag. No owner. When I turned to leave, the shop lights flickered. Just once. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. I truly mean that. If you enjoyed these stories, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. That way, you won't miss the next ones. And once again, thank you for walking this dark road with me tonight.